Welcome to the Middle Book, a sanctuary for those who feel the quiet pull beyond the surface of things. The Open Door. Introduction. You didn't come here by accident. Some part of you, quiet, ancient, and often ignored, has been guiding you, not towards something new, but towards something forgotten. It called you here not with noise, but with a hum beneath your thoughts, a whisper behind your desires, a pull that never forced, only waited. You've spent so much of your life searching for answers, for peace, for purpose. Maybe you thought it would be found in achievements, in relationships, in books filled with other people's wisdom. And still, after all the striving, something remained unresolved. A silence under the surface, calling out in your most honest moments. That silence, it was never emptiness. It was an invitation. Because there is a doorway inside you. Not one was built by hands or opened by effort. It doesn't exist in time. You won't find it in a future accomplishment or a perfected version of yourself. This door has always been here. You've walked past it every day. Sometimes you've brushed against it in dreams or in moments when time stopped, when music stilled your thoughts, when a sunset dissolved your boundaries, or when love, real love, undid you in the best way. You've already touched the edges of the infinite. You just didn't stay long enough to realize it was home. This isn't a teaching. It's not a method. There is no technique to learn, no belief to adopt. What follows isn't meant to convince your mind. It's meant to awaken your memory. Because deep inside, beneath all the doing and proving and striving, you already know. You've always known. The divine has never been far away. It's not in the stars or the temples or the sacred texts alone. It's in your breath, in the space between your thoughts, in the quiet moments when you stop trying to be anything other than what you are. But the world is loud. It teaches you to seek endlessly, to fear silence, to fill every space with noise. It tells you that you must earn worth, chase peace, climb toward God. And so you've run yourself in circles, trying to outrun the ache of not enoughness. You've worn 1,000 masks just to be seen, just to be loved, just to feel like you belong. But here's the truth. You've always belonged, not because of who you've become, but because of what you've always been. There is nothing missing in you, nothing broken. What feels lost is only hidden beneath layers of noise. And when the noise quiets, what remains isn't emptiness, it's presence, still, radiant, unchanging. This presence is what waits behind the door. You don't need to force it open. You only need to notice it's already ajar. You've stood before it 1,000 times, you're standing before it now. And you don't need to prepare yourself to enter. You're already welcome. What follows is not a journey outward, but inward. It's not about fixing yourself. It's about remembering who you are beneath the forgetting. This is the art of returning, the soft undoing of illusions, the gentle melting of all that stands between you and the presence within. You won't be asked to believe anything, only to listen, to feel, to breathe, to open. Because the deeper truths don't arrive in thunder or logic, they arrive in stillness, in simplicity. Like a dawn you didn't realize was already breaking behind your eyes. So come, bring your weariness, bring your questions, bring your longing and your doubt and your hope that maybe, just maybe, peace is possible. Not as something you achieve, but as something you remember. This is your quiet invitation. The door has always been open, and now you're ready to walk through. Chapter 1. The Power of Quiet Communion. There is a moment, often brief, often unnoticed, when the world goes quiet. Maybe it's in the early morning, before anything begins. Maybe it's in the hush, after a deep sigh. Or in the pause between heartbeats, when you're not thinking, not striving, not trying to be anything at all. That moment is sacred, not because it comes with visions or voices, but because in that space, something eternal reveals itself. And it doesn't come with fireworks. It comes gently, like the way sunlight warms a windowsill without asking for attention. This is what communion really is. Not a ritual, not a ceremony, not a reaching towards something far. It's the soft return to something you've never been without, a presence too vast to be named, yet closer than your next breath. You were taught to search outside, to speak upward, to hope that something out there might hear you, guide you, love you. And maybe it did, in glimpses. Maybe you found hints of divinity in cathedrals, in nature, in the words of mystics and prophets. But even in those moments, a quiet truth lingered beneath it all. The voice that spoke to you. It spoke from within you. True communion begins when you stop talking, when you stop trying to impress, to convince, even to pray the right way. It begins when you become still enough to listen. And not just with your ears, but with your being. Because this presence doesn't speak in language, it doesn't argue or explain. It moves more like a song felt in the chest, or a knowing that needs no proof. It speaks when the mind rests. In the silence beyond thought, beyond self-concept and identity, beyond planning and regret, there is a field, an interior space untouched by time. You may have passed through it without realizing, perhaps during a time of grief when all your distractions fell away, or in awe when the beauty of something stunned your mind into silence, or maybe in the dark night when all you could do was surrender. You may have thought you were alone in those moments, but you weren't. You were closer than ever. The power of quiet communion is that you don't have to climb toward anything. You don't have to beg or perform. You don't need to be better, more enlightened or more disciplined. You only need to be. Fully. Honestly. Willingly. The presence welcomes you in your rawness, in your confusion, in your unfinishedness. There's nothing to hide. It doesn't need your perfection. It only longs for your honesty. And when you allow yourself to sit in that sacred stillness, not trying to get anything, not hoping for signs, not even meditating with effort, but simply being with what is, something begins to open. Not quickly, not loudly, but steadily, like the unfolding of petals that don't ask to be watched. There is healing in this communion, not always the kind that changes circumstances, but the kind that dissolves resistance, that softens the armor, that reminds you without words that you are held. This isn't about belief. You don't have to believe in anything. You just have to be willing to feel, to breathe, to return to the quiet place inside that has always known. There, the illusion of separation begins to fade, not because you try to transcend anything, but because you simply stop resisting what is always here. You might sit in the quiet and feel nothing at first. That's okay. Don't look for signs. The presence isn't a performance. It's a truth too constant to be dramatic. Like gravity, or breath, or love that never left. In time, you may begin to notice that your thoughts become softer. Your body feels safer. A subtle warmth moves through your chest, or a clarity arises that you didn't try to create. This is the power of communion. Not the power to get more, but the power to remember what's always been yours. And as you return to this space again and again, not as a task but as a gift, you begin to see differently. You begin to move differently. You begin to live as someone who knows they're never alone. You carry this stillness into your conversations, into your work, into your pain. You don't preach it, you embody it. Not because you're trying to be spiritual, but because you've remembered that spirituality isn't a role, it's reality. Beneath the layers of personality, beneath the stories you tell yourself, you are communion in motion, a living echo of the presence. And as you continue to come home to this quiet space, you start to notice the presence not just in meditation or silence, but everywhere, in the sound of wind through leaves, in the way a child laughs without filter, in the ache of missing someone, in the taste of water when you're truly thirsty. Everything becomes a portal. Everything becomes sacred. Because your eyes are no longer looking for God as a concept, they're recognizing God as the fabric of existence. But it begins in stillness. It begins in silence. It begins when you finally say, I'm ready to stop running. I'm ready to sit, to listen, to be. So take a breath. Let the outside world keep spinning. Let the thoughts keep passing like clouds. You don't have to fix anything. You don't have to hold yourself together. You only have to show up with your full present self and be with what is. This is communion, and it changes everything, not by force, but by presence, not by asking you to become more, but by revealing that you already are. Chapter 2. Trusting Divine Order Amid Chaos. There's a part of you that wants to understand everything. That part works hard. It plans, it prepares, and it evaluates every outcome. It believes that if it could just stay a step ahead, life wouldn't catch you off guard. You'd be safe, in control, whole. But the truth is that life doesn't always unfold the way you expect, and sometimes it doesn't even make sense. There have been days when everything you counted on fell apart, when what was steady suddenly crumbled, when the plans that seemed so certain unraveled in your hands like dust, and in those moments you may have looked up or within and whispered, "Why?" But no answer came, at least not the kind the mind was hoping for. That's because the answers the mind seeks rarely satisfy the soul. The mind wants logic, the soul speaks in rhythm, and rhythm, divine rhythm, doesn't always follow straight lines. It doesn't obey our timelines or our preferences. It moves like a river, carving its own course. And to the mind, it may look like chaos, but beneath the surface, something deeper is always at work. You may not see it when you're in the middle of the storm, when the job is lost, when the relationship ends, when the path you were so sure about vanishes into fog, but somewhere beyond your sight, the current is still flowing, and it knows exactly where it's taking you. Divine order doesn't mean everything is easy. It means everything is aligned, even when it hurts. It means there is a thread running through all of it, connecting what you've gained and what you've lost, what was born and what died. And that thread, invisible as it may seem, is love. Not the sentimental kind, not the romantic kind, but the kind of love that rearranges your life to reflect what your soul came here to remember. When things fall apart, you're not being punished, you're being redirected. When the door closes, it's not rejection, it's protection. When the delay comes, it's not a denial, it's a recalibration. But to trust this requires something most people aren't taught. It requires surrender. Not the surrender of defeat, but the surrender of control, of needing to know, to manage, to force the unfolding. Surrender doesn't mean you stop caring. It means you stop gripping. It means you let life breathe again. And yes, that can be terrifying, because the ego believes control equals safety. It believes that without control, we'll be lost, forgotten, broken. But control is an illusion. Safety was never in the plan, it was in the presence. And you don't find that presence by holding on. You find it by letting go. When you let go, something else rises to meet you. Something timeless, something whole. It doesn't shout. It doesn't insist, it waits. You may feel it first as a softening, a loosening in your chest, a moment of unexpected peace in the middle of uncertainty, a breath that goes deeper than the others. That's not apathy. That's alignment. That's what it feels like to step out of resistance and into trust. It doesn't mean you stop feeling pain, or fear, or grief, but those feelings are no longer enemies, they become part of the path. Teachers in disguise, reminders that you are alive, awake, and transforming. Trusting divine order doesn't mean pretending everything is fine. It means being real with what hurts, while knowing it's not the end of the story. It means holding sorrow in one hand and hope in the other, and letting them both be sacred. It means choosing again and again to believe that there's something larger than your fear, a wisdom deeper than your doubt, a love more constant than your confusion, and that something isn't far away. It's within you. It's the part of you that's never panicked, never rushed, never worried about how it all turns out. It knows, it's always known. You can feel that part now. Maybe just a flicker, maybe more. It's the part of you that breathes easier when you remember you're not here to carry it all alone, that you never were. This is not blind faith, it's deep seeing, a vision that doesn't come from the eyes but from the soul, the kind of vision that looks at the mess and says, even this is sacred. So the next time something breaks, don't ask, why is this happening to me? Ask, what is this making space for? The next time you feel lost, don't panic. Be still. Listen for the subtle shift. Trust the detour, because chaos is often the language of transformation. And order is not the absence of chaos, but the presence of deeper meaning, hidden just beneath the surface. This is what it means to trust divine order. To live like the ocean, powerful, mysterious, unmoved by surface winds. To walk through the shifting seasons without losing your center. To let life reveal its patterns on its own terms, in its own time, and to know that whatever shape it takes, you are being carried, not towards something foreign or forced, but home. Chapter 3. Changing perception, not the world. There comes a moment in every seeker's life when the question shifts. No longer, how can I change this? But rather, what is this showing me? This is the moment everything begins to turn, not outward, but inward. Not because the world has changed, but because you have. The world, for all its chaos and beauty, is a mirror. It reflects back what you hold, what you fear, what you resist, and, most importantly, what you believe. And yet, so often, the instinct is to try and rearrange the mirror, to fix what's out there, to chase peace by controlling the uncontrollable. But peace doesn't live in the mirror. It lives in the one who's looking. You've probably spent years trying to change the conditions of your life, thinking that once you solved enough problems, fixed enough flaws, or crossed enough finish lines, you'd finally feel the calm you've been chasing. And maybe, for a moment, you did. But it didn't last. Not because you failed, but because you were looking for something eternal in something temporary. Peace isn't found in perfection. It's found in perception. You've been taught to believe that peace is the result of everything falling into place. But real peace comes when nothing has to change for you to feel whole. When you begin to see differently, not just with your eyes, but with your presence. To change your perception is to shift the seat of your awareness, to stop living from the surface where circumstances constantly pull and provoke you, and instead begin to live from the center, where stillness speaks and wisdom waits. From the surface, life will always seem chaotic. People will always disappoint you. Situations will always fall short. The mind will find endless reasons to be uneasy. But from the center, there is space. And in that space, there is clarity. Not because the storm ends, but because you're no longer trying to hold back the wind. Perception is not about pretending. It's not about spiritual bypassing or looking away from pain. It's about seeing through it, seeing deeper, seeing the presence of grace in the places you once only saw struggle. What if the obstacle isn't a punishment, but a portal? What if the delay isn't life being unfair, but life protecting what your mind can't yet understand? To live this way is not easy at first. It requires humility. You have to be willing to admit that your mind doesn't have the whole picture, that your judgments are incomplete, that maybe, just maybe, there's a different way to see. But once that humility arrives, the door opens, and through that door flows a quiet power, the power to remain at peace within, even when nothing is resolved without. You begin to understand that life doesn't owe you understanding. It offers you a presence. And if you can rest in that presence, even in moments of confusion, something inside you begins to shift, not dramatically, but fundamentally. You become less reactive, less frantic. You stop needing answers and start holding space. You let people be who they are without needing to change them. You let situations unfold without forcing outcomes. You learn to trust the wisdom of not knowing. And this is the great paradox. The more you release your grip on needing the world to change, the more the world around you begins to shift. Because your energy shifts, your vibration softens, your presence calms the storm instead of feeding it. You become the eye of the hurricane, not above life, but deeply within it, anchored, aware, at peace. This is not passivity, it's power, quiet, steady, transformative power, the kind that doesn't need to prove anything, the kind that sees clearly and moves wisely without being pushed by fear. Perception is everything. It's how you filter experience. It's the difference between seeing a failure and seeing a refinement, between seeing loss and seeing clearing, between seeing chaos and seeing rebirth. And the good news is that you don't need to force a shift in perception. You only need to become willing. Willing to sit with what you thought you understood. Willing to let go of the story. Willing to ask, what else could this be? Sometimes it's as simple as breathing differently. Sometimes it's pausing before you speak. Sometimes it's closing your eyes and stepping back, just for a moment, from the urgency of the situation. And in that moment, something opens. What opens isn't an answer. It's a space. And in that space, you remember, you are not your reaction. You are not your thoughts. You are not your fear. You are the one who sees, the one who chooses, the one who breathes before speaking, the one who pauses before judging. And that one is already whole. The world may not change overnight. The circumstances may not be resolved right away. But your relationship with them will. And that is everything. That is freedom. So ask yourself, not once, but often, how am I seeing this? From fear or from trust? From the surface or from the center? Keep asking, keep listening, keep returning to the quiet place inside where vision is not made of eyes but of awareness. You don't have to change the world to find peace. You only have to stop believing that the world controls your peace. Because when perception shifts, everything shifts, and peace at last becomes not something you seek, but something you are. Chapter 4. Detachment from Ego and Fear. There is a voice within you that's been speaking for so long, you may have mistaken it for who you are. It's the voice that says you need to be more, do more, prove something, protect everything. It's the voice that fears being wrong, left behind, unloved, unseen. This voice is not your enemy, but it is not your truth. This voice is the ego, and it has done its best to keep you safe. It has built walls to protect your softest parts. It has created identities to help you navigate the world. It has convinced you that control equals safety, that success equals worth, that fear equals wisdom. But the ego cannot see beyond itself. It cannot feel the depth of your soul. It does not trust the unseen, and so it clings to what it can measure, manage, or manipulate. Fear is its language. Defense is its posture. And the more you listen to it without question, the more disconnected you feel. Not just from others, but from yourself. From the deep, sacred self beneath the surface, the part of you that doesn't need validation, that isn't afraid of silence, that doesn't live in reaction, but in presence. There comes a moment in the inner journey when you begin to feel the weight of this voice. You hear its demands and realize they are not yours. You sense its panic and realize it's not your nature. You recognize its noise, and for the first time, choose not to follow. That moment is freedom, not because the ego disappears, but because you no longer believe it's who you are. You step back, you observe, you breathe, you begin to see the ego as a structure, not a self. A helpful tool, but a poor master. You don't need to destroy it or deny it. You only need to see it clearly, to stop being ruled by its fear. Because when fear runs the show, everything becomes a threat. Every unknown is a danger. Every pause is a failure. Every mistake is a catastrophe. And peace in this state is impossible. But when you detach, not from life, but from the grip of ego and fear, something softens. Something loosens its hold on your chest. The breath becomes easier. The mind becomes quieter. You remember, you are not this voice. You are the one listening, and the one who listens, that deeper awareness, is not afraid. It doesn't need to defend, to compare, to chase. It simply watches. It holds space. It speaks in stillness and clarity. It knows who you are without needing to prove it. This detachment is not cold or passive. It's warm and clear. It allows you to move through life with open hands, to love without needing control, act without being driven by fear of failure, to speak without needing to be right. You don't detach by escaping the world. You detach by stepping back within it, by choosing not to react automatically, by pausing when your pride is triggered, by breathing when your insecurity rises, by seeing the game for what it is and choosing a different way to play. The ego wants certainty. The soul is at home in mystery. The ego wants praise. The soul is nourished by truth. The ego fears loss. The soul understands cycles. The ego seeks applause. The soul seeks alignment. And every moment you are given the choice. Will you live from the voice that fears or from the awareness that sees? This is not a one-time decision. It is a practice, a remembering, a sacred undoing. You will forget. You will get caught in the noise. That's okay. It doesn't mean you're failing. It means you're human. The point isn't to be perfect. It's to return. Again and again. Gently. With compassion. With presence. And each time you return, something within you grows stronger. The space between stimulus and reaction widens. The pull of the ego becomes less urgent. You begin to live more from center, less from reactivity. You become grounded, present, whole. You may notice the change first in small ways. You don't feel the need to defend yourself as quickly. You stop comparing yourself to others as often. You begin to listen more, to pause more, to move slower. You make decisions not from anxiety, but from clarity. And those around you will feel it. They may not name it, but they will feel your calm, your steadiness. Your softness is not weakness, but strength. The kind of strength that comes from someone who has made peace with who they are. Because when fear loses its grip, love rises. A love not based on conditions, but on connection. A love that includes yourself, your wounds, your past. A love that extends to others without trying to fix them. This is the gift of detachment. Not that you care less, but that you love more wisely, more freely, more fully. So begin now, gently. Notice the voice that tries to control everything. Thank it. And then take a breath. Feel the space that opens when you no longer obey it. Return to the awareness that watches, that waits, that knows. The ego may shout, but the soul always whispers. And when you learn to follow the whisper, you begin to live in peace, not as an escape, but as your true home. Chapter 5. God is not distant. You were told to look upward, to reach out, ask for signs, to kneel before something far beyond the stars and hope, if you were good enough, faithful enough, small enough, that maybe it would hear you. But what if the presence you long for is not watching you from afar, waiting to be convinced? What if it's already here? What if it never left? You've been walking through life with a sacred thread stitched into your being, a whisper beneath every heartbeat, a glow behind every moment of stillness. Not something external, but something essential, something that cannot be added to you because it is you. You are not separate from the divine. You never were. The distance you feel is not a punishment. It's not even real. It's a forgetting. A fog that settles when the mind takes the lead and silence is feared. When life is reduced to tasks and timelines, the sacred is confined to rare moments or holy places. But the sacred was never meant to be confined. It doesn't need incense or temples or chants to arrive. It only needs space, a breath, a pause, a single moment of presence. You've touched this before, more times than you remember. You've felt it in the way music sometimes stops your thoughts, in the way tears come out of nowhere when someone looks at you with unconditional love, in the way your body sighs when you're finally alone and nothing is being asked of you. That's not a coincidence, that's contact. It wasn't a random piece, it was a remembering, a dissolving of the illusion that you are separate, isolated, left to figure this life out on your own. The presence you call God or source or spirit or love is not a being far away. It is the ground of your being. It is not hidden from you. It is you in your most natural, uncluttered state. But to feel it, you must be willing to stop searching, to stop trying to earn what you already are. You must become still enough to recognize what's already pulsing beneath the surface. This presence doesn't shout. It doesn't force. It will never compete with the noise of your fear, your striving, or your endless self-improvement. It waits. It waits behind the breath you take in. It waits in the quiet of the night, when no one's watching and the masks fall off. It waits when the grief strips you bare and you stop pretending to be strong. It waits when you finally ask, not for something to fix you, but for something true. You don't have to be perfect to feel it. You don't have to fix your flaws or silence your doubts. You only have to become honest, real, open. This presence is not offended by your wounds. It does not judge your confusion. It doesn't need you to believe. It only asks that you notice. Notice the stillness that lives underneath the noise. The clarity doesn't come from thinking, but from simply being. The warmth that rises when you finally allow yourself to rest, not just your body, but your soul. That warmth is the presence. It's the answer to the question you didn't know how to ask. It's the completion of the ache you've carried for years. It's the home you thought you'd find out there, but always lived within. You are not being tested. You are being remembered. And in that remembrance, all striving softens. You no longer need to perform. You no longer need to chase spiritual highs or mystical proofs. You begin to understand that holiness is not an experience. It is your essence unveiled. You begin to see the presence not just in quiet moments, but in everything. In the laughter of strangers, in the aching beauty of loss, in the softness of your own breath, even in your doubts, your fear, your imperfection. The presence is there not as something to correct you, but as something holding you through it all. This changes how you live. You stop seeking approval because you know you are already seen. You stop fearing the unknown because you know you are already held. You stop trying to get closer to God because you realize closeness was never the issue. It was only awareness. And awareness is a choice. A gentle, steady practice of coming back, of pausing, of noticing the now, noticing the life within this moment. Notice the current of presence that never left you, not even for a second. There is no veil you must tear down, only the fog of distraction, of resistance, of forgetting. And when that fog lifts, whether for a breath or for a lifetime, you see clearly, you were never alone, you were never too far, you were never not worthy. Because God is not distant. The divine is not in the sky waiting for you to rise. It is in your marrow, your memory, your stillness. It is the part of you that doesn't need to try. It only needs to be. So close your eyes. Feel the ground beneath you. Let the breath find its rhythm. There is nothing to reach for, nothing to strive toward. The presence is already here. It always has been. And now you remember. Chapter 6. The Sacred Art of Letting Go. There is a tension you've grown used to carrying. It lives in your shoulders, in your chest, in the space just behind your eyes. It hums beneath your thoughts, always bracing, always preparing, always gripping something invisible. You've held on to so much, not because you're weak, but because you were taught that holding on is strength, that letting go is giving up, that surrender is failure. But what if letting go is not a weakness at all? What if it is the doorway to everything your soul has ever longed for? Letting go is not a dramatic act. It's not something loud or visible. It happens softly, in the quiet corners of your being. When your fists unclench, when your breath deepens, when the voice that always tells you to do more, be more, try harder, finally goes silent. It happens in the moment when you stop resisting what is. When you stop trying to force the river to flow your way, you learn to float. You've been taught that you need to control things to be safe, that if you don't hold the pieces tightly, they'll shatter. If you don't keep the past alive in your memory, it will repeat. That if you let go of what hurt you, you'll be unprotected. But that kind of control is a cage, and you weren't born to live behind bars of your own making. To let go doesn't mean to forget. It doesn't mean to erase your pain or deny your history. It means to stop carrying it like a burden on your back. It means to stop gripping every moment as if you are the one keeping the world from falling apart. The truth is, the world spins on its own. Seasons change without your permission. People come and go no matter how tightly you love them. Circumstances shift with or without your effort. You were never meant to hold it all. Letting go begins when you realize that surrender is not the end of power but the beginning of real peace. Because peace doesn't come when everything is under control. It comes when you no longer need it to be. You may be afraid that if you loosen your grip, everything will fall apart. But maybe, just maybe, it will fall into place. Letting go doesn't always mean walking away. Sometimes it means staying, but with different eyes. Sometimes it means releasing the expectation that someone has to change in order for you to be okay. Sometimes it means releasing the belief that your worth depends on how much you do, fix, or prove. And sometimes it means grieving. Grieving what you thought life would be. Grieving who you used to be. Grieving the story you carried for so long, only to realize it's no longer yours. Grief is not a failure of letting go. It is a companion to it. A sacred one. Because only when you truly grieve can you truly release. And once the grief has passed through you, once it has been honored and held and seen, what remains is something quieter, lighter, truer. You don't need to push for this to happen. Letting go cannot be forced. It comes when it's time. But you can invite it. You can create the space for it. You can sit in stillness and ask gently, what am I still holding that no longer serves me? Listen to what rises. Don't argue. Don't justify. Just feel. You may notice it's not just memories or regrets that you hold. It's identities, roles, old versions of yourself that no longer fit but feel too familiar to release. You may find that letting go is not about objects or people, but about outdated beliefs, about assumptions that have silently shaped your life. I am not enough. If I don't control this, it will all fall apart. My pain defines me. None of that is true, and none of it is you. As you begin to release these inner weights, you start to feel your natural state again. Not one you have to create, but one that's been buried under effort. That natural state is open, soft, receptive, not weak, but unguarded, not passive, but trusting. And in that openness, life begins to flow again, not in the way the mind demands, but in the way the soul recognizes. You begin to notice the synchronicities, the gentle rearranging of circumstances, the way things begin to unfold, not because you forced them, but because you allowed them. Letting go is the art of sacred permission. Permission for life to breathe on its own. Permission for the past to be complete. Permission for yourself to be free from what no longer fits. It doesn't mean you stop caring, it means you care more wisely, with open hands instead of clenched fists, with trust instead of attachment. So, take a breath now. Feel the weight you've been carrying. Feel how long you've held it. Then ask yourself with deep compassion, is this mine to carry anymore? If the answer is no, release it. Not all at once. Maybe just a little today. Maybe just enough to feel the light return. Letting go isn't a one-time act. It's a rhythm, a remembering, a returning to trust. And every time you let go, something else returns. Your peace, your center, yourself. The ones who never needed to control anything because they were always connected to everything. The one who knows the only thing you ever had to hold on to was love. Chapter 7. Living as the Light. You're not just a body moving through time. You're not just a name, a role, or a personality that others can define. You are light. Not metaphorically, not symbolically. You are, quite literally, made of it. Every atom in your being pulses with the same intelligence that spins galaxies, that births stars, that breathes through forests and tides and hearts. You are the echo of that radiance, a flicker of the divine wearing skin. You've known this, if only in glimpses. Moments when something cracked open inside you and the world looked softer, brighter. When someone's presence calmed you, not because of what they said, but because of what they carried. You may have called it peace, or presence, or energy, but what you were witnessing was light, undimmed, unburdened, alive. And that same light lives in you. You don't have to earn it. You don't have to deserve it. You only have to uncover it. Because over time, layers have gathered, stories, shame, self-doubt, expectations, the belief that you must become something more in order to be enough. You must hide your softness to be safe. You must earn love instead of realizing you are love. But the light you carry doesn't need to be made. It needs to be remembered. To live as the light doesn't mean you're perfect. It doesn't mean you don't feel pain. It means you shine through it. It means that even in moments of confusion or heaviness, something deeper in you remains untouched, still glowing, still here. Living as the light is not about grand gestures. It's about quiet presence. It's in the way you listen without needing to respond. The way you hold space for someone's pain without trying to fix it. The way you move through the world with a softness that doesn't collapse and a strength that doesn't dominate. It's how you pause before you react. It's how you choose compassion when judgment would be easier. It's how you love yourself enough to stop dimming just to make others comfortable. You don't need to do anything to be the light. You already are. But you can align with it. You can choose to live from it. You can wake each morning not wondering how to survive, but asking, how can I embody what I truly am today? Sometimes it looks like stillness. Sometimes it looks like action. Sometimes it looks like saying no. Sometimes it looks like holding yourself with the tenderness no one else ever did. The light in you isn't separate from the light in others. When you live from it, you remind others of what they are too, not by preaching, but simply by being. Light awakens light. It doesn't have to try. It just is. And yes, the world is full of shadows. But shadows are only possible where light exists. Your job is not to fight the dark. Your job is to be so rooted in your radiance that others remember their own. You may think, but who am I to shine? Who am I to carry this much beauty, this much presence? And the answer is, you are exactly who you need to be. Not in some future version, not once you're healed or whole or wiser, now, as you are. Cracked open, raw, real. The light moves through that, not around it. You don't have to wait for your circumstances to shift before you begin. You don't have to be free of fear before you live from love. You don't have to feel radiant every day to know the truth of what you are. Even when you forget, the light in you does not go out. It only waits, quietly, patiently, like the sun behind the clouds. And when you remember again, when you sit in silence or take a breath or let yourself feel without resistance, it rushes back, not from the outside but from within, because it never left. To live as the light is to stop hiding, not by making yourself louder, but by becoming truer. It is to speak when your voice shakes because truth matters more than approval. It is to forgive, not because others deserve it, but because you do. It is to walk through life with your heart open, not because it won't be hurt, but because it was never meant to be locked. The light you carry is your gift to the world, not because it makes you special, but because it makes you remember. And when you remember, everything begins to change, not through effort, but through alignment. You no longer force things to happen. You allow them to unfold. You no longer chase meaning. You become meaning in motion. You no longer look for love. You express it, even when no one's watching. And the world feels it, whether it tells you or not, whether it understands you or not. Because true light doesn't need validation. It just shines, quiet, clear, unafraid. So now breathe. Let all the roles drop. Let the masks fall. Let the stories dissolve. You don't need them here. You are not too much. You are not behind. You are not broken. You are the light, and it's time to live like it. Chapter 8. The door was never locked. You've searched so long. Through teachings and books, through rituals and silence, through heartbreak and healing. You've climbed inner mountains, wandered deserts of doubt, and stood at the edge of thresholds that seemed unreachable. And yet, despite all the effort, all the seeking, there's something strange you're beginning to realize. The door was never locked. In fact, it was never even closed. You were standing inside it the whole time, but your eyes were turned outward, looking for signs. Your hands were busy rearranging the world, thinking if you could fix enough, achieve enough, control enough, you'd finally feel at peace. Still, something always felt off, distant. Like a song you couldn't quite hear but knew by heart. That's because you were listening from the outside. And the song was always playing within. You were taught to believe the sacred was elsewhere, high above, buried deep, hidden in mystery. You were told you had to qualify, that only the worthy could enter, that if you were quiet enough, obedient enough, spiritual enough, the divine might let you near. But presence was never holding the key. You were. And now you've remembered. You see now that it wasn't about arriving. It was about waking up. Waking up to the truth that what you were searching for was never separate from you. It was in the stillness you overlooked, in the pauses you rushed past, in the breath you took without noticing. The divine didn't leave you, it became you. And when you stopped striving to earn it, you began to feel it, subtle, steady, like a warmth beneath your skin. You don't need to chase transformation anymore. You're not some broken thing that needs fixing. You're not a soul that needs rescuing. You're a flame that needs remembering, a presence that needs space to rise. All the noise, the restlessness, the constant pressure to become, that was just the fog. And the fog only seemed real until you sat still long enough for it to part. Now you see, the door is not in the future. It's not in some perfect version of yourself. It's here, always has been, quiet, simple, open. The door was never locked because it led inward, not outward, and you've carried the key all along. To walk through it is not dramatic. It doesn't require a ceremony. It requires only this, presence. Not the kind of presence that demands effort, but the kind that allows, that softens, that breathes with life, not against it. This is not the end of the journey. It's the return to where the journey began. It's the homecoming after lifetimes of forgetting. It's the realization that the soul doesn't evolve by escaping life, but by entering it more deeply, more truthfully, more awake. You're not above this world. You are here to walk it with sacred feet. You are not here to ascend away from your humanity. You're here to bring light into it, to embody what you are, not escape it. And so, you begin to live differently. Not because you've been told to, but because something in you is now aligned with truth. And truth always moves differently. It doesn't hurry. It doesn't grasp. It doesn't posture. It simply is. And so are you. You start to speak more gently. Not just to others, but to yourself. You move through the world with softness. Not because it's safe, but because you no longer fear being seen. You no longer seek meaning in achievement alone. You infuse meaning into the ordinary, into dishes and traffic and eye contact and silence, into being alive right now for no other reason than the miracle of it. You stop asking, "Am I enough?" because you feel, perhaps for the first time, that you already are. Not because of what you've done, but because of what you are made of. And you begin to recognize the divine in places you never thought to look. In a stranger's smile, in the ache of goodbye, in your own hands folded in your lap, not doing anything but being. This is the gift of the open door, not access to some far-off heaven, but permission to come home to your own presence, to realize that heaven was never a place, it was a way of seeing. And now, you see, there will still be hard days, the noise of the world won't disappear, the ego will try from time to time to pull you back into the fog, you'll forget, you'll tighten, you'll fall. But now you know the way back, you know how to pause, how to breathe, how to listen beneath the noise and return to the stillness inside. You know the feel of that doorway now, and you'll never unknow it. This isn't about staying in a perfect state, it's about knowing how to return. And each return deepens the light, softens the mind, expands the heart. So let this be your remembrance. The sacred is not a mountaintop, it's this moment. God is not waiting behind some curtain in the sky. God is the pulse in your chest. You are not separate from the divine, you are its living echo. And the door you've searched for, longed for, wept in front of, it was never locked. Conclusion. You've come a long way, not in distance, but in awareness. This journey wasn't about becoming someone new. It was about remembering who you've always been beneath the noise, the fear, the striving. And now you see it clearly. The door you were searching for was never locked. It was never even closed. It's always been here, quiet, open, waiting within you. You don't need to chase peace anymore. You don't need to fix everything to feel whole. You don't need to perform for love or prove your worth to the divine. That presence you longed for, it's not watching you from afar. It's living in your breath, your stillness, your being. And now you know how to return. Return when the world feels heavy. Return when fear rises. Return when the old stories creep back in and you forget what you are. Because you will forget. That's part of being human. But forgetting doesn't change the truth. The door is still open. The light is still burning. The present still waits, not with judgment but with love. It doesn't need to be perfect. It only asks that you remember. And you will. More and more. Until returning becomes your rhythm. Until peace becomes your home. Until the light you once searched for becomes the way you live. So walk gently now. Not toward the sacred, but as it. Not in pursuit of truth, but as its living echo. The door was never locked. It's open. It's here. And it's yours. If this message brought you closer to yourself, we invite you to subscribe, revisit, and share it with others walking this quiet path. Your journey inward is sacred, and you're never walking it alone. Until next time, return to your breath. Return to the stillness. The door is open.